Since the start of the human potential movement, many people have tried to solve a great mystery. One man let past everyone else and figured it out. Not only did he decode the mystery, he left behind his work for us to use. When you access this code, your life will never be the same again. If you've struggled to improve your life, know that we all have. If you've only gotten mediocre results with the usual manifestation strategies, know that you can change that right now. You're going to learn about the most transformational model that exists for self-improvement. Keep watching if you want to know how to transform your life with precision. But first, who created this model? And later, how can you use it for yourself? The man I'm referring to is not Neville Goddard nor Joe Dispenza. His name was Steve Andreas. As a young man in the late 1950s, Steve was a scientist, a chemist to be precise. He obsessed over understanding how matter works. After a while, though, his interest in chemistry subsided. His curiosity about how the mind works would eclipse his interest in the hard sciences. But he would still take his scientific approach with him. He decided to apply to the psychology graduate program at Brandeis University. Because he had never studied psychology, Abraham Maslow, yes, that Abraham Maslow, the one who created the hierarchy of needs pyramid, accepted him into the program, and you heard that right. Maslow didn't want psychology graduates in his psychology program. Upon receiving his master's degree under Maslow, Andreas found himself disappointed. The field of psychology was too theory-heavy and too light in getting actual results. Maslow, he would later say, was a disappointment. He had the right idea, but he didn't walk his talk. Steve's desire for understanding the mind was not satisfied, far from it. He was just getting started. More curious than ever, he searched even harder for greater depths of knowledge. Steve would later drop Maslow's teachings and his hierarchy of needs theory. Yet Maslow's influence affected the direction he would take for the rest of his life. It's quite possible Steve didn't even realize this. In essence, he would end up creating what Maslow tried but failed to do. And it would take Steve 4 more decades to do it. In 1967, Steve found a new mentor. This time, it was Fritz Perls, the creator of Gestalt therapy. He would become a Gestalt therapist and teacher. He would even write a book on Gestalt therapy called Awareness. Steve liked the direct application of Gestalt, which made it different than the other therapies of the time. But there was still something missing. In 1977, a friend introduced Steve to a new psychology model. It was nothing like the theoretical psychology he had practiced. The controversial model had a reputation for getting rapid results. This was unheard of at the time, and it was also rumored that a professor of linguistics and a mathematician had created it. The model was Neuro Linguistic Programming, NLP. Immediately, Steve recognized that it contained many missing pieces. Up to this point, he had never seen a method so practical and so results-driven. He had never seen such fast interventions either. Needless to say, he was eager to learn it as soon as possible. He canceled an upcoming Gestalt teaching tour and became a beginner all over again. NLP focuses on modeling. You map the structure of successful mindsets and behaviors. Then you apply that map to other parts of your life where success is lacking. As Steve learned NLP, his curiosity about the nature of transformation peaked. It would drive him to see how far he could take NLP modeling to understand what makes the mind tick. If he could get this, he could make positive change accessible to anyone. Most importantly, he could make transformation accessible to everyone. Steve, with his wife Connie Ray Andreas, certified as master practitioners of NLP. They trained with the founders Richard Bandler and John Grinder. For the rest of his life, he and Connie Ray would teach NLP and write books on the topic together. Each created their own NLP models and wrote their own books as well. They further developed NLP, making major contributions to the technology throughout the years. Many are still part of NLP trainings to this day. Steve found himself fixating on one of the most well-known NLP processes, the swish pattern. This was the start of cracking the code on self-concept. The swish pattern is simple and effective for rapid behavior change, but no one knew why it worked so well until Steve discovered the truth about it. It actually works at the level of identity rather than behavior. The pattern recodes negative habits so that the habit stops immediately. This happens by interrupting the negative behavior with an ideal image of yourself. This ideal image of you is not bound by behavior or context. This means you take it wherever you go. Steve recognized the potential to expand on this ideal self. If you can use your ideal self to change a habit, what other possibilities might there be? Could you use it to transform your identity? Could it show you how to fulfill your potential and live a better life? Steve wanted to find out. For the next decade, Steve focused on understanding how we create our sense of self. He believed that if he could map identity, he could transform it. It took his many years of studying psychology and mastering NLP to do this. He spent years modeling how we construct beliefs. He also studied the effects belief have on behavior and experiences. The most important belief of all that he focused on is the source of all beliefs: self-concept. At this point, people knew how important self-confidence and self-esteem is to well-being, but no one could explain how to create more of it. That was until Steve had a major breakthrough. Most people function from a poor self-concept. Your conscious mind has little input when it comes to creating your identity. It's mostly left up to your unconscious to haphazardly create your sense of who you are. As a result, your self-concept too often lets you down when you need it most. But what if you can make the underlying processes that create identity conscious? And what if by making it conscious, you could transform it into your ideal self? For example, what if you've suffered failures in your life? They've been so frequent that you now unconsciously identify as a failure. Believing you are a failure would cause you to fail at nearly everything you try until you give up on trying. This is especially true if you are not aware of the beliefs. Because you believe it, you make it true. Also, because you value success, failing destroys your confidence and self-esteem. But if you could make that belief conscious and change it into believing you are successful, this would raise your self-esteem and confidence. With more confidence and self-esteem, you could make being successful a self-fulfilling prophecy. This led Steve to discover what creates enduring self-confidence and self-esteem, aligning your beliefs about yourself with your highest values. In other words, by believing you are what you value. What he also discovered was that you can create this alignment immediately. It doesn't have to take more time and experience than you've already acquired in your life. Steve knew that for this alignment to work, your new beliefs about yourself would have to be solid. So he experimented with ways to make self-concept stronger. At the same time, he feared this could make people more arrogant. But to his relief, he found that aligning beliefs with values makes you less arrogant. It also makes your self-concept stronger and more stable. He didn't stop there. Steve recognized that resilience is a major factor for a durable self-concept. For many people, self-confidence and self-esteem disappear when life gets tough. At the same time, an insensitive self-concept is not ideal either. To respond immediately to threats, we must be sensitive to the world around us. We must also be sensitive to people so we can connect with others. So Steve developed techniques for making your self-concept less fragile while enhancing sensitivity. By the late 1990s, Steve and Connie Ray had grown a following of students. Steve would hold experimental workshops. Here, he could test his theories about self-concept, and he could make adjustments to the model as he developed it. This collaborative process helped him refine and test the self-concept model. It ensured the model's effectiveness for transforming whoever uses it. Steve wanted to give people a hands-on model that you could use to transform yourself at will. In his own words, he wanted people to understand how their self-concept works. He wanted to teach them how to strengthen it and how to change it. His ultimate goal with the model was to help people live a more satisfying and successful life. Through his workshops and his book, Transforming Yourself, Steve Andreas brought his self-concept model to the public. Though popular with his students, this extraordinary model didn't reach much further than the people who already knew him. I'll give my thoughts on why the self-concept model never took off like some popular self-help fads have a bit later. Steve would retire from teaching in his mid-70s, and the self-concept model was all but forgotten. They say when the student is ready, the teacher appears. I caught a glimpse of a rare opportunity, and I wasn't about to let it pass me by. I had already done that too many times in my life. So often opportunities are staring you right in the face. All you have to do is open your eyes. 10 years ago, Steve Andreas popped into my life and offered to help me. I jumped at the chance. He was one of the kindest people I have ever known. He gave so much of his time and attention to help someone he didn't even know. At the time, I was looking over the cliff of a midlife crisis, still trying to figure out my life. I had been after something since my teenage years that I could not grasp. After months of mentoring, Steve finally said, "I know what you're after," which was great because I still didn't. I began learning and applying the self-concept model. Up to that point, there were so many great things in my life, but I couldn't appreciate them. Recent tragedies had overshadowed them, filling me with constant worry. I knew how important gratitude is, but I wasn't a grateful person. So I used the self-concept model to transform myself into a grateful person. This was the first of many transformations I've had using this model. It took me less than an hour. It felt like my entire reality shifted, and life hasn't been the same since. Right then, I realized that this model would change everything for me. It did. I also realized its potential to change the world. I applied the model several more times, and I had several more transformations. It was obvious that Steve was right. This was exactly what I had been looking for decades. Not only that, the possibilities of what this model can do for people is unbelievable. It creates transformations with precise and predictable results. It is the crowning achievement of self-improvement. Before I started teaching the model, I wanted to know if I could make it work with other people. I started using it with my clients in my coaching practice. The result? Transformations. Transformation followed by more transformation. When I asked Steve why this model isn't being taught everywhere around the world, he didn't have answers for me. Marketing wasn't his talent. He dedicated his efforts to resolving inner suffering and figuring out how we can fulfill our potential. He probably didn't have much attention left for figuring out how to advertise it. On September 7th, 2018, Steve left this world, leaving behind an impressive body of work. But before he went, he endorsed me to teach the self-concept model. I was the only person for whom he gave this distinction. I'm not a marketing genius either, but I've made it my mission to bring the self-concept model to the world. That's why I made this video. Why hasn't the self-concept model become more popular among the other self-improvement concepts? The same reason why magic diet pills and fake shortcuts are more popular than what actually works. The appeal of no effort required is more seductive than the truth. Effectiveness is not required for something to be popular. It just needs to make people feel good, even if it's temporary. Steve once told me that if you want to wait around, do nothing, and expect to be happy, just use drugs or alcohol. But if you want to live a life of lasting fulfillment, we now have a model for that. Transformation requires commitment to delve deep into the core of your being. Only a select few will choose to take this journey. Most people don't want to change. They want the world around them to change, to suit them better. They want other people to change. The self-concept model is for those who are ready to learn the rare skill of transforming yourself. Learning it requires dedication that not everyone is willing to invest in themselves. It's a path less traveled. It's a path for those who are called to experience just how far they can take their potential. If you want to learn how to use the self-concept model, click the link in the description below this video to get started on your journey. If you would like to see demonstrations of me using the model with clients, check out this playlist right here.